Hey guys, today we're going to be making some goat milk and fiddlehead soap. So what I'm doing right now is I'm measuring the amount of goat's milk that I'm going to be using, and I'm going to be adding it to the oils. So I have my lye and water cooling right now on the stove. I had used a 1-to-1 ratio. So I had used like 27 ounces of sodium hydroxide and about 30 ounces of water. I prefer to use this method, the milk to oil method for goat's milk, because it's just always worked easier for me. If you did want to use a complete milk replacement though, I would recommend freezing the goat's milk into ice cubes and then using that in your lye mixture. So this is Fiddleheads. It's very popular to eat here in northern Maine, especially in season. Like, it's the rage. It's basically like this fern that grows along moist regions in the area. And so we had picked some and blanched them and then dehydrated it, and then I took those dried fiddleheads and I put it in my coffee grinder, and it blended into a pretty fine powder. So I just added a little bit, like a teaspoon of fiddlehead powder, and I'm going to mix that in with canola oil, and I'm going to use that later on for designing the top of my soap, and you'll see that. So now I'm just pouring my lye water through the strainer, and I find when I'm using a lower concentration of water to lye that it develops a crust on the top, so I always am sure to use that strainer because I don't want any chunks getting into my soap batter. Now I'm just pouring a small amount of soap into this container. I'm going to use it once the soap is poured. I'm going to use it on the top for doing like a type of ribbon texture for the soap top. So I'm just going to mix it and then set it aside. And I added the soap batter to that colorant before I added the essential oils, just in case like that were to affect trace. I would want this in the squeezy container to be fluid, and I didn't want a chance like in case it accelerated or anything. So I always, whenever I'm doing that like for the ribbon candy soap tops, I always set that aside before I add any of the scent. And now this is the rest of the fiddlehead powder that I'm using, and I'm just dumping it all right into the soap batter. I didn't bother infusing it, but I would be interested to try infusing it next time into an oil. There's about 1/3 of a cup in there, and I'm adding that to about 12 pounds of soap. So I poured my soap batter into my molds. I forgot to turn it on. I had a telephone call in the middle of all this, so I kind of was a little bit sidetracked and distracted. But anyway, right now I'm texturing the tops. So I'm just squeezing little lines of this colorant lengthwise down the side of my loaf, and then I'm just going to texture the tops like you saw in the other loaf that I just did. And the color difference is really not that great in this batch, and I was expecting that. But in the pictures, I mean, you can tell it's almost like this ghost swirl, but with a green tint. It was actually kind of pretty. I then set these loaves right into my oven to gel. I did not need to turn on my oven because the soap batter itself is already pretty hot. I find that it stays pretty hot when I use a 1-to-1 lye to water ratio, so I didn't want it to overheat, so I really made sure to not overheat it. So I didn't turn on my oven. I just stuck it in there to get it out of the way. And this soap cutter is fairly new. I got it for craft's sake, and I like it a lot. It's been really good. It cuts nice and straight as opposed to me eyeballing it with a knife, so I do like that.